If you smack two heavy metal balls together, the energy of their collision will be focused at such a small point, enough heat can be produced to literally burn a hole through paper. Try this at home. It smells like smoke, but let's make it even hotter. First, I'll need to rust up one of these balls. A bowl of water should do the trick. 10 days later, that's a rusty meatball. We'll wrap the other ball in aluminum foil, turn down the lights, put on some ear and eye protection, and start whacking until this happens. Did you see that? That is molten slag at more than 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that didn't happen because I'm so strong, even though I am. It happened because the colliding balls produced the ignition temperature needed for a thermite reaction. The aluminum reduced the iron oxide, the rust on the ball, to form aluminum oxide, elemental iron, and much more heat than I put in. Now that's what I call exothermic redox. This is probably the most irresponsible thing I own. We've all seen these. Silica gel packets. Do not eat. They contain silica dioxide, a material that absorbs moisture really well to keep humidity levels low. But if ingested, it can cause internal blockages. It can also irritate your lungs and your eyes and your skin. Basically, do not eat it. But what if you want to? Well, my friend Dory, who I've worked with for years, now runs a company called Wask, and they made these. They look exactly like do not eat silica gel packets, but inside, well, they're actually filled with candy. Now, is this irresponsible to have around? Is it a work of art? Is it a comment on humanity's fragility and desires? Yes. Can you draw this without ever lifting your pen off the paper? Probably not, but I'm going to show you how. I love this trick. When I was a kid, I showed this to everyone, and they thought that I was not weird. Here's how you do it. Grab a sheet of paper and a marker. Begin with the dot. Now maintain contact with the paper and stop thinking in 2 dimensions. Grab the corner of the page and fold it into the dot. Now, while maintaining contact with the paper, move on to the back of the page, come on up here, come back onto the front of the page, fold the paper flat, and complete the ring. I love the color orange, but here's something kind of weird about orange. If you write a word with orange letters, its letters will not be reversed in a mirror. That was just a trick. Of course, mirrors reverse orange letters. Except they don't. Mirrors don't reverse anything. They send back exactly what lands on their surfaces. This letter R appears reversed in a mirror, not because the mirror has flipped it, but because I have. In order to show the letter R to a mirror, I have to flip the letter. What I see in the mirror is exactly what I see in my hand. The trick works only because the letters in the word choice have a very special kind of symmetry, where when flipped to be shown to a mirror, and then turned upside down, they go back to the way they originally looked. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, septillion, octillion, nonillion, decillion, undecillion, duodecillion, tridecillion, quadriwardecillion, quindecillion, setecillion, septendecillion, octodecillion, novendecillion, vigintillion, unvigintillion, duovigintillion, tresvigintillion, quadriwarvigintillion, quinvigintillion, sesvigintillion, septenvigintillion, octovigintillion, novemvigintillion, trigintillion, untrigintillion, duotrigintillion. 10 duotrigintillion is 1 Googol. Are you tired of solar system sets that aren't to scale? Well, me too. So, I did something about it. That's right. We made stickers of the planets with diameters that are to scale. There's Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. If you're not just a planet freak and you also like little specks of debris, we also included Pluto. And the moon, which orbits so far away from the Earth, you could literally fit every single planet and Pluto in between the two, a fact wonderfully celebrated by the included poster. Everyone knows that triangles have 3 sides, but what the shirt in our fall curiosity box presupposes is, what if they don't? The midpoint of each of a triangle's sides, the foot of each of its altitudes, and the midpoint between its orthocenter and each of its vertices all fall on the circumference of a circle. A triangle's incircle is the largest circle that fits inside it, and its circumcircle is the circle on which all of its vertices lie. Now, relative to these 3 circles, the sides can be described. They each have endpoints on the circumcircle, midpoints on the 9-point circle, and are tangent to the incircle. But in 1993, B.F. Sherman discovered that there are not 3 lines with these properties, there are 4. And our shirt celebrates it. This orange line is the 4th side of this triangle. The worst alphabet book ever. That's what P is for pterodactyl calls itself. For each letter, the example word is terrible, usually because it begins with the right letter, but the letter is silent. For example, A is for aisle, K is for night, D is for Djibouti, E is for you. In English, every letter is silent, sometimes, except for one, V. Bread, climb, indict, handkerchief, imagine, fifth, gnaw, rhyme, business, marijuana, knife, talk, mnemonic, autumn, jeopardy, pneumonia, lacquer, forecastle, island, listen, build, wrist, faux pas, prayer, rendezvous. The closest V ever got to being silent is in 2017 when the President of the United States tweeted this word, Kofefi? This is what the book does for V. This is a D1, a die that will always and only roll one number, 1. Is it a joke? No, it is a candle on a cake that we baked to celebrate geometry, our denary dice set. A set of 10 dice in which each next die allows you to decide between one more option than the die before. The D1 is not weighted in the bottom. It works because its shape is monostatic. There's only one way it can stably balance. We spent 2 years making sure each die was as fair as possible. That's why I'm so excited that they're here. They will be in the next curiosity box. We're only gonna make so many, so the best way to ensure we make a set for you is to join right now. If you do, your first box will come with the hurricane balls, a portable sound visualizer we designed, and more. How about this? You can save $20 off your first box by joining right now with code 1. This is Marion Bataille's ABC 3D, a beautiful pop-up book. It begins at the beginning with the letter A. Now, on the next page, you might expect there to be the letter B, but, okay, where is B? Oh, there it is. The letter C cleverly flips to become D, E becomes F, G spins into view, here's H, followed of course by I and J sharing a dot. K, oh, look at that L. But if you like mayonnaise, you're gonna like this next one, M. N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, and of course W. X becomes Y, and we end with Z. Are people getting hotter? No, they're getting colder, and no one knows why. Nearly 200 years ago, Karl Reinhold August Wunderlich observed that 98.637 was the average temperature of the human body. But every year since that observation, each new crop of people born has wound up running, on average, about 0.003 of a degree Celsius cooler than those born the year before. Today, adults run at an average of about 97.5, 36.4, and we don't know what's causing it. It could be that we're all walking around with less infection and inflammation than before because of better hygiene, medicine, sanitation, food, water, but that doesn't explain why even the indigenous Semaine of Bolivia are also cooling down. All we know right now is that scientifically speaking, boomers are hotter than millennials. This is how I spell the word church. It's wrong. Or is it? T can make a ch sound. Look at the word picture. And OLO is obviously pronounced kernel. T, again making a ch, gives us church. Now this might remind you of that old chestnut goatee, but this doesn't spell goatee. Oh no, this is a way to spell fish. The GH makes the f sound we see in enough. The O is pronounced like the O in women, and the TI is like the TI in nation, fish. Now if all of this has you thinking, what? Why? Let me explain. This is not OED, the Oxford English Dictionary. This is a way to spell the word what. The O is pronounced like the O in one, and the ED is pronounced with a t, like in hacked. And this, how is this why? Well, take a look. Why? K. Choir. Why? 11 years after a jury found him not guilty of the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, O.J. Simpson wrote a book, and he called it, I Did It. Here's the story behind this book. Although acquitted on criminal charges, O.J. was later found financially liable, so he has always owed money to the families of the victims. In 2006, to make some money, he decided to write If I Did It. The premise of the book was literally O.J. saying, I didn't do it, but if I did, here's how and why I would have. As you can imagine, the public was revolted by that idea, and all 400,000 copies of the book that had been made were destroyed. But a year later, a bankruptcy court said, hey look, O.J. still owes these families money, let's give them this asset. And so the Goldman family took the book and published it. Now they have always believed in O.J.'s guilt, and so they made the cover look like this, I Did It. But they're not libeling him. The title is still technically If I Did It. If I Did It. Entire novels, and even a version of the book of Genesis, have been written without using the letter E even once. It's called constrained writing, and I find this stuff really impressive. I love it. But today, I wanted to show off my favorite, Michael Keith's Not Awake. This uses every letter in the modern English alphabet. So what's its constraint? Well, let's start reading. Now I fall. A tired suburban in liquid under the trees, drifting alongside forests simmering red in the twilight over Europe. How many letters are in each of those words? 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 9, 2, 6, 5, 3, 5, 8, 9, 7, 9, 3, 2, 3, 8, 4, 6. Pi. It is a 10,000-word book of poetry, plays, and puzzles in which the number of letters in each next word exactly follows the decimal value of pi. The first person to ever be photographed didn't know they were. In 1838, while Louis Daguerre took this famous exposure, they were getting a shoe shine. We don't know anything about this person. We know that they were born a long time ago, but do we know who the earliest born person ever photographed is? Well, there's kind of two answers. This is Caesar, an American slave photographed in 1851. A slip of paper mounted on the back of the frame says he was born in 1737. That would make him 114 years old at the time this photo was taken. But so far, no one has been able to confirm the year of his birth. The earliest born person ever photographed whose age has been verified is John Adams, a shoemaker from New England. Born in 1745, this guy was 11 years old when Mozart was born. There's nothing quite like a fresh glass of water. But how fresh is water? Well, believe it or not, as much as half of the water you drink is older than the sun. The universe contained water before our sun was born, but for a long time it was feared that when a star is born, nearby water could be obliterated into hydrogen and oxygen, and the cosmic rays needed to form plentiful water again could be blocked by its solar wind. Only in rare circumstances, like our own, could a sun reform new younger water in its system after its birth. But recent studies of the water around us and models of how water forms in the first place have found that anywhere from 30 to 50% of the water in our solar system, the water we drink and bathe in, predates the sun. which is embarrassing for our container technology. Chemicals in packaging can leach into water, giving it a bad taste over time. So even though much of this water has been around longer than our solar system, it expires in just a few years. Cyan, magenta, and yellow. Subtractive color mixing. I worked with the inventors of the original CMY cube to make this special edition, which Curiosity Box subscribers will be receiving in the spring. The cyan face filters out long wavelengths, while the yellow filters out short ones. Together, only the greens in the middle of the visible spectrum get through. Magenta blocks the middle of the spectrum. So paired with cyan, only short wavelengthed blues and purples come through. And paired with yellow, just the long reds and oranges emerge. It's not too late to get this and more. Go to curiositybox.com to join, and thank you for supporting smart toys, a good cause, and for feeding your brain. If I took every single water molecule in this bowl and lined them all up end to end, single file, how long would that line stretch? 100 meters? A mile? 10 miles? No. This many molecules of water placed end to end would stretch a light year. And that fact is what inspired us to create the light year bottle. Free yourself from the yoke of three-dimensional space. Don't drink volume, drink length. How many light years of water can you suck? There's other unusual amounts as well. For example, filled to here, the entire bottle weighs about as much as a warm human heart still beating in your hand. Why would you want to know this kind of stuff? Well, because I know you. And you don't just live a life of action, you live a life of the mind. And you're weird. This bottle and our die that only rolls one number are both coming in the same Curiosity Box later this year. When it all arrives at your door, your eyes will fall upon it. And by the way, this is the amount of water in 2 adult human eyes. Let's cut Mount Everest in half. It is nearly 9,000 meters tall, but the Earth is 12.7 million meters wide. So the Earth is really smooth, but not as smooth as a billiard ball. In this video, I showed that if you were a giant who could hold the entire Earth in your hands, it would feel about as smooth as the top of a pancake. Now, that's still pretty smooth, but here's something else. The name Everest comes from this man, who did not pronounce his name Everest. His name was George Everest. But that doesn't mean that he would want us to call the mountain Mount Everest. Oh no, he never wanted the mountain to have his name at all, because it already had an established local name, Chumulongma. He didn't discover it, and in his entire life, he never even saw it. What am I reading right now? Well, let's take a look. First up, 1 million digits of pi. It begins at the beginning. 3.141592653589793238462 and so on. It contains the first million digits of pi. It is thrilling. Now, when I'm finished with this one, I'm going to move on to the square root of 4 to a million places. This is a fantastic reference book. In case you forget, the square root of 4 is 2. But I love knowing more. This book contains the square root of 4 with a precision of 1 million digits. I cannot wait to see how this one ends. Many of you already know that I discovered the word vsauce using fakenamegenerator.com, a website that generates all kinds of things, including English language domains that are available. Like apparently girlonceboy.com is available. Well, anyway, that's where vsauce came from. But this is what I call the Finnish coincidence. Let's type wisdom into Google Translate. It's detected as English. But now let's translate wisdom into Finnish. All right, here we go. Here's the Finnish word for wisdom. And now let's listen to how it sounds.
Vsauce.
Say what?
Wisdom. Vsauce.
Can your thumb do this? It's called hitchhiker's thumb, and it affects about 1/3 of the human population, including Adele, Jessica Alba, and Pedro Pascal. By itself, it has no complications. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't cause problems. It's thought to be inherited, but its exact cause is not known. Distal extensibility is a spectrum, and there's debate over what should and should not count as hitchhiker's thumb. Also, it doesn't just affect thumbs. Any distal finger bone can be hyperextensible. My most backward bending are my right thumb and my left pinky. I often use it to pretend I've been injured. Is the thumb a finger? Almost every time I say something like, oh, I've got 5 fingers on my hand, a smart butt inevitably pipes in and says, don't you mean 4 fingers and a thumb? Guess what, Kyle? The word finger most likely comes from the Proto-Indo-European root word pinkwe, which means 5. Also, call it what you will, but your central nervous system treats your thumb like a 5th finger. Within this square, I can fit these 5 cookies. And if I want to be a little bit naughty, I can. Watch this. If I sneak a cookie and eat it, I'm in trouble, right? Because there's missing space. The cookies don't fill the square anymore. Or do they? If I turn each of the remaining cookies 180 degrees, they fill the square again. It's not magic, it's math and psychology. And I want you to do it at home. That is why we made this, a silicone baking mold that you can put dough in and then bake into cookies to perform the illusion. The cookies pop right out of the silicone and it's wonderful. The kit also comes with a silicone baking mat and a unique little spatula with ink on it. This is just one of the several pieces of delicious brain food we cooked up and put in the latest Curiosity Box. Join at curiositybox.com and use code ILLUSION to save $20. This is my impression of a guy who thinks that numbers should be arranged alphabetically. 8, 5, 4, 9, 1, 7, 6, 10, 3, 2, 0. Thank you. And now this is my impression of a guy who is counting, but the only numbers he knows are numbers whose names in English are spelled with all of their letters in alphabetical order. How many do I have? Let me find out. 40. Thank you. And now this is my impression of a guy who is counting, but the only numbers he knows are numbers whose names in English are spelled with their letters in reverse alphabetical order. 1. Thank you. In the English language, if you look at all the number names that we have that are found in dictionaries, the very first alphabetically would be billion. The first Roman numeral alphabetically is 100 and the last is 38, unless you write 9 like this, in which case it's 39. The most valuable thing I own is probably this. 5 years ago, I had a chance to meet the individual behind How To Basic. As a gift, I was given this, which they had recently used in a video. I asked if they would sign it, but they had never signed an autograph before, didn't even know what to sign. We worked together to come up with this, HTB, with 2 eggs drawn on either side, and then the date underneath. This may not be the only autograph How To Basic has ever done, but it very well may be the first. But here's what's really wild. I was so nervous and so honored to meet the actual mysterious How To Basic that I took it really seriously. I didn't tell anyone their name. I didn't even tell my own wife. And so for 5 years, I just didn't even think about their name. Today, I have forgotten it. I literally forgot who How To Basic is. If you kidnapped me and tortured me to give you that information, I couldn't. All I have is this memory. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7 ate 9? No, 7 never ate 9. 7 doesn't even know 9. The truth is, years ago, 6 and 7 decided to go camping together. And 7 wanted to bring 3 knives for survival. But 6 knew that 7 secretly hated him and didn't have benign intentions. The most points that can be scored in a game of Scrabble in a single move is unknown, but the highest so far discovered was found by Dan Wood in 2008. It requires an unlikely scenario in which you have these 7 letters, the board looks like this, and it's your turn. First, you take your O and turn pacifying into opacifying. You take your X to change is into Zis, which means more than one Zi. You make requalified pre-qualified. Rainwashing becomes brainwashing. Wakeners becomes awakeners. One time becomes zone time. And finally, with your E, jaculating becomes ejaculating. You made those 7 words by vertically playing oxyphenbutazone, a word that, like all the words on this board, are allowed in tournament play by the North American Scrabble Players Association. In that one move, you scored 1,780 points. Does your hand look like my wife's hand? Do your fingers fold down along two major lines, a distal and proximal crease? Most human hands do, but for about 15% of the population, it's not that simple. For example, on my left hand, my distal crease fuses with my proximal crease, creating a single fold line all the way across my hand. And on my right hand, a bridge crease connects both lines, meaning that my hand folds again along just one fold line. They're sometimes called simian lines, I guess because they make your hands look like little monkey person hands. Medical professionals tend to just call them single traverse palmar creases, if they refer to them at all. The major creases of the palm have not shown to have much predictive power when it comes to health or medical issues. They're just kind of random, like fingerprints. Fingerprints freak me out. Their swirls and loops form at random in the womb, not according to instructions from your DNA. So identical twins may have the same genome, but they won't share the same fingerprints. This is Baker, a nuclear test conducted by the United States in 1946 to evaluate the effect atomic weapons had on warships at sea. At first, the United States was unaware of the extent of the radioactive contamination they had wrought. To decontaminate, they initially just asked sailors to mop the ships. But it didn't take Dr. Stafford Warren long to realize what they had done. He pled with the Navy to evacuate. But here's the thing. The Geiger counters they had on site could not detect the main threat, plutonium everywhere, and so from the Navy's perspective, nothing was wrong. It took a week for Warren to convince everyone to abandon the cleanup. He finally persuaded them by pulling a fish out of the ocean and throwing it onto a photographic plate, alive and flapping around. The fish had absorbed so much plutonium that sitting there on the plate flapping around, it took its own X-ray. This frightening selfie is called an autoradiograph. This is indium, the only element in the universe that is safe and soft enough to chew like bubblegum. I've had this lump of indium for years, but I've never taken a bite out of it, until now. Actually, biting it wasn't as hard as I expected. It was kind of like refrigerated milk duds. It softened as it warmed up in my mouth, and as I chewed it, I could tell it was metal. I could feel the vibrations of the crystals twinning. It had absolutely no taste. Chewing it was like chewing bubblegum on a freezing cold day. You know, when you breathe in the cold air and the gum gets hard? It was almost softer than that. But it's probably not the best thing for your teeth, so don't do this at home. Oh, and by the way, it's also just soft enough to write with. It kind of sticks to your teeth. But overall, I would give it a 9 out of 10. And if you think that sounds high, keep in mind that the periodic table also puts indium close to 10. Before you were born, what did you see? How dark was it inside your mother's body? Pretty much no visible light gets deep within our body cavity, but a uterus? Well, inside a womb at night, this is what you would see. But during the day, it might look more like this. In fact, it can be bright enough inside a womb to read a book. Inside a womb, covered with light clothing and an averagely thick abdomen, in direct sunlight, it can be as bright as an overcast day or even a typical office building. It's a womb with a view. Oh, also, if you shine a trio of lights like this at a human fetus in the womb, it won't really care. But if you shine lights like this, it will look at them and follow them. Why? Well, the leading theory is that this arrangement more closely resembles a human face, and that even before we're born, even before we've met anyone, we are already looking for other people. This book was designed to be as boring as possible. Let's take a look inside. Now, I believe that anything can be interesting, but also anything when done right can make you drowsy, especially if you write it like this in spirals that force the eye to go around and around and around. The book also contains a catalog of spoons, a dictionary of words to describe dullness. Here's a selection of the dullest entries in interesting diaries. For example, on September 2nd, 1938, George Orwell wrote in his diary, "Fine and fairly warm." Oh, a few facts about roundabouts. Metric and imperial measurements of screws. There's also activities. For example, count the sheep. Count the sheep again. Or how about a spot the difference game? Which of these sweaters is different? Here's a history of the Snellen eye chart written like an eye chart. Oh, and I'll leave you with this one. Pause the video to see how well you do. A staring contest with 48 cats. This can of soda expired almost 4 years ago, July 1st, 2019. And this morning I discovered that it's been leaking everywhere. It's never been opened. But under pressure, the carbonic, citric, and phosphoric acid in soda can eventually make microscopic holes in aluminum. I decided there's really only one thing to do. Taste test. What does soda taste like that has been eating through metal for years? It smelled like soda, but it tasted like water. It was nice and refreshing, honestly. And that's anticlimactic. I was hoping I would do something like this. Right? That would have been funny. Please like me. Thick and thin. If I roll them both up and let go, which one do you think will unroll fastest? Think about it. All right, you got your answer? Let's see if you're right. 3, 2, 1. Hey, what do you know? It's a tie. Our new playing cards are curious and a piping hot stew of illusion. Put them together to create mind-bending moire patterns. If you're a Curiosity Box subscriber or become one soon, you'll be getting these. Let's do some math magic with them. Deal out 3 piles of 3 cards each. Choose any pile and then choose a card from that pile. Let's choose the 9 of clubs. Place the card you chose at the bottom of its pile and then place that pile on top of the other 2 piles. Now we're going to spell the name of the card we picked letter by letter, dealing down 1 card for each letter, just like this. N-I-N-E, rest on top. O-F, rest on top. C-L-U-B-S, rest on top. Now, no matter what card you chose, the card you chose will now be the 5th card from the top of the deck. As always, thanks for 9 of clubs. My uncle gave me this old dried out cob of corn about 8 years ago, and I've just had it around as decoration, but I got a bit hungry today, and of these 6 main types of corn, this cob happens to be popcorn. That means its hull is really strong, so when I warm it up, all the moisture in the endosperm doesn't just turn to steam and gradually escape. Oh no, pressure can build, and that pressure builds to about 135 psi, at which point the hull bursts, and the starches and proteins in the endosperm turn into that beautiful foam that we call popped popcorn. Now, as you can see, this is a huge mess. Really, you should do this by putting the cob in a paper bag or something. But I didn't have any paper bags, and also my mom lives hundreds of miles away and does not even know I'm doing this. Here are the results. I call it popcorn on the cob. As you can see, though, most of the kernels popped off the cob. But it's delicious. And here's a fun fact. Corn is a cereal grain, which means, botanically, it's a type of fruit. Triangle, square, pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, octagon, enneagon, decagon, hendecagon, dodecagon, tridecagon, tetradecagon, pentadecagon, hexadecagon, heptadecagon, octodecagon, enneadecagon, icosagon, circle. Psych! That was not a circle. It was a kiliogon, a shape with 1,000 sides. The kiliogon is famous in philosophy. The human intellect can understand the kiliogon. We can calculate their areas and perimeters, and we can separate them from myriagons, which have 10,000 sides, and megagons, which have 1,000,000. But human imagination is, in a way, more limited. In our mind's eye, we cannot behold each of the shapes completely and appreciate their differences in appearance. Grab a wire coat hanger and about 5 feet of string. Tie the hanger's hook in the middle of the string. Wrap the ends of the string around your fingers and then stick your fingers in your ears. Now, let the hanger dangle as far down as you want, and with your ears firmly plugged, swing the hanger into something solid, like a wall or a table or a chair leg. Okay, now to you, those collisions probably sound pretty weak. But to me, oh well, every time the hanger vibrates, it sends vibrations through the string, to my fingers, and then into my skull. That causes my eardrums to vibrate in a very special way, so that what I hear is a deep, beefy gong sound. Try it yourself. The first person to kiss Paula Abdul isn't who you think it is. We are told that according to Paula, I had my first kiss under a tree near the school. It was with a boy named Michael, who rarely spoke, but he would sometimes give me one of the cookies from his lunch. Maybe it was the gifts that made me feel special, I don't know. But when our lips touched, it felt magical. But there were no lips. At least, not on a guy named Michael who had cookies. The whole story is made up. It's a joke written by Joe Quazala. It was published on Clickhole in 2015, where the joke was that it sounds like a story from her youth, but it's actually adult Paula Abdul just talking about her week so far. But the punchline was lost on many, and today, if you Google Paula Abdul's first kiss, you will find that that joke has become consensus history. Now, I looked into it, and Paula Abdul's first kiss actually came from a man named Craig Schiller. But I'm glad that Quiet Michael, a man who was never born and has no lips, is here with us. He sounds nice. I've always been a bit of a filamentologist, but after Paula Abdul responded to my video about her first kiss, people started calling me names. They called me things like the kiss expert and the best kisser in the world. Yeah, fine. Keep calling me names like that, guys. See if I care. I accept them. And that's why I took a pilgrimage to the Obama Kissing Rock. In Hyde Park, Chicago, on 53rd and Dorchester, there stands a 3,000-pound monument to a brief moment in the summer of 1989. Back then, on this very spot, Barack Obama first kissed Michelle Obama. Barack Obama? More like Barack Ooh La La.